People that have come out of their way to come here tonight, this is the bit where you have your say and the stories that you want to tell and the ideas that you have for where we move forward. We've got about 10 weeks from today, roughly. So, over to the floor. Yes?
I've got an elderly neighbour who was very upset she's not well enough to come tonight, but she wants to have a say.
Alistair,
So
there's a mobile mic by there so everybody can hear.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
I've got a written piece of an elderly neighbour who's quite upset she wasn't well enough to attend tonight, so can I hand it over for you to...
Unless you want to read it yourself, are you sure? No, that's fine. That's fine. It reads, please do not close Dolwen. I have spent 15 happy years, 2 days a week. It's a happy place. Staff are fantastic with us. We see many things to keep us amused, and food is first class, and it's cosy. It was built for lonely people. It's a great place for fun. I was also as a patient there. As my son was on holiday, it was great remembering the lives of our generation who won the war. Don't let us be forgotten, Mrs. Panther. Diolch. Thank you. Anybody else? We'll go with the lady first. This lady over here?
Me?
The lady with the glasses with the silver hair. Yes, please. There we are.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I look after my husband who's 80 and he's got Alzheimer's. I've tried several times to go to Dolwen. I was advised by the counsellor to see them, but unfortunately I just cannot get a social worker to recommend me to go there. They have recommended me to go 7 miles away. Transport for me, I don't drive anymore. If my husband needs urgent attention, he's going to have to change his GP, and that is what we don't want. We've been with our GP forever. So what do we do now? We want to go to Dolwen. It's near, just opposite us. I can walk there. So why do I have to be told where to go? Can you answer that, please?
Thank you. Well, as I say, I'm not here to represent the council tonight, but I think you have just demonstrated exactly the points that Mabon was just making now, and cases such as yours just shouldn't be.
The social workers have been told not to refer anybody to the day centre in Dolwen.
Right, well, for anybody that didn't hear that, I've just heard here, the social workers have been told not to refer anybody to the day centre in Dolwen, just in case anybody didn't hear that.
Why is that?
Okay. Gentlemen, you wanted to have a word? Yes, please.
It's going to be a cost of 6.5 pence per hour, you said. What is, there's some councillors here, what is your opinion on the fact that 6.5 pence per hour? All of you, I don't know how you voted or what your opinions are, but if it's 6.5p an hour, these people in Dolwen, the quality is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So, what is the council's answer to the fact that it's only 6.5p an hour?
Well, personally, I haven't voted anything yet, and I will not vote for any closure of any home. Because my mother died this year, and she was in a home in Carnarvon, and she was looked after in a home run by Gwynedd County Council. She was a lonely girl for long, and when she went to her home, she arose and was very, very happy for a long, long time. So I'm all with you. I will not close, not me. No. I'm the Plaid Cymru leader within the county. So I'm trying to be in a way the group leader. So these cuts have been forced upon us, and they've been forced upon us by many, by the officers, and they're just doing their work. fair dues to them, they're just doing their work. And also, if I may say so, it's come from the Welsh Government, and I don't want to go political here, it is coming from the Welsh Government and also from the government down in London.
Thank you very well. I think we just asked for county councillors from this gentleman. Reasonable question. Very quickly, Jason McLennan at the back of the room there.
It's a good question, and it illustrates the point that it's in fact all privatisation. It's outsourcing, it's a privatisation of a service, and Alistair, I want to thank you for this meeting, brilliantly attended. I saw your Facebook page this evening as I was leaving, and it's about keeping it in public ownership. And you said that, and that's the message we need to get across. What I would say to everyone here responding, and the gentleman's book is excellent, because it just illustrates how privatising the service is the wrong thing to do. That's the line of attack. Because if you read the report, it actually says there's no provision in the private sector locally to take that up. The private sector locally, in terms of care homes, there has been some issues with CSLW reports as to whether they're up to scratch. And the report itself says there's no backup in the private sector to take it up. So what will happen? God knows. We've talked about the Welsh language. That's a vital, very important part for the residents involved with. That will go if it goes to a big company outside. That's the line of attack you've got to take. I need to make another point. I'm grateful for what you said about applied company councillors. We've had an assurance from Arwell here, sorry, I should say, I'm a Labour councillor. I'm in opposition. I should declare 2 more interests. I work for Anne Jones's office, and I'm up for selection to be a regional list member in the Assembly elections. Excuse me. So we're on a guarantee Plaid Cymru will vote against the cuts with Labour in opposition. We're in opposition. We've voted against every single cut that's come through. I'm looking at Adwell now, I get on with him, he's a brilliant defender of Welsh language, he's a hard-working councillor. But him and Plaid Cymru, your councillors in this county, have voted through every single cut. They voted through the cuts to the bus services that you talked about. They voted through Plaid Cymru.
Yeah, let's just, I'm not going to let tonight, I'll promise everybody here, it will not become a political point score. So I'm just stamping on that now. But what I will do is I will stay focused all night on Dolwen. Let's talk numbers here, right? There are 47 county councillors in Denbigh Shire. When the vote goes to full council, the maths say we need a majority, we need 24. I don't care if they wear a pink badge, a blue badge, a green badge, a yellow badge, a black badge, anything they like, as long as we get those votes through. I do appreciate the point there that Jason was making, and I would say further to what Jason just said, just for the record so people know, these CSSIW reports that you were referring to, the latest one for Dolwen, which will come as no surprise to anybody here, was excellent. Any more points, please?
Backing that up is because the staff in Dolwen are loyal, dedicated, and love the job that they're doing.
Absolutely.
They think of the people, they get to know those people, and they give them their best.
Yeah, and can I just add, to my experience here, the number of times they go way beyond what's expected of them in their pay that we never even know about. But thank you very much. You're our local heroes. Thank you. Lady at the back, Bernadette.
I am going to declare an interest. I am a Labour North Wales regional list candidate, but I am chair of North East Wales United Community Branch, which is based in Wrexham. We've been protesting. Wrexham lost their last council-run care home last week. The loss of 30 jobs, and those elderly residents are now having to go into private care. So my whole thing is to make sure that we stop the rest of the care homes across Denbighshire from falling into private hands. Because once they go, we will never ever get them back, and our elderly deserve far better than what they get from private care. Because, you know, once privatisation is all about money, it's about making money, it's not about the people in the care homes. And my branch of United Community, we're interested in people and our elderly, they're the ones that count. So I urge you to do everything you can. I'm from Prestatyn. But I want to keep East Denbigh and all the rest of Denbighshire, I want to keep every single care home open and in the public sector in our hands, not in the hands of the wealthy.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Just like to point out, it's been stated that Dolwen staff were in agreement with the privatisation.
Right.
Which is totally
Okay. Yes, this point refers to a comment made by the current chair of the town council, who is one of our county councillors, who is on the task and finish group that will ultimately decide the fate of whether or not to recommend this towards cabinet, a gentleman by the name of Raymond Bartley. And it's minuted in the town council meetings from a recent meeting that he has said that the staff and the unions are all happy with the current proposals for Dolwen. That's minuted, I've got the copies here.
We actually had a meeting with the unison and we told them that we didn't want it.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes? Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, yes, please.
I'm Elaine, I work in Dolwen and I'm a unison rep. And no, we have not agreed with anything. In fact, we're very, very keen to find out what people want. We will be responding as a trade union to the consultation. My own feeling is I'm way, way opposed to privatisation, and that is the union's position, we're opposed to privatisation, but obviously we have to discuss it with people to find out what they really think. But there's something else I was going to say earlier. It has been touched on from the floor. It wasn't touched on from the platform, and I think it's quite important. I agreed with everything you said about the home, but there's also a day centre, and that day centre, they've been running it down for years. We used to have, colleagues will be able to help me with this, we used to have, I think, over 40, it was over 40, wasn't it?
35 a day. 35
That was in
in
Oh yeah,
yeah.
in Dolwen.
In Dolwen, we've had large numbers.
Yeah, 5 days a week. It's been run down over quite a time, and the people who do come are only allowed limited time now. They're not. It's not permanent service. Now we've had so many of our residents in Dolwen started out as coming to the day centre because they were lonely or because their families needed help living in the community. They came initially to Dolwen to daycare. Then, because their needs have changed, they become residents because they choose Dolwen because they already know people. So I'd like to see, I'm rounding on now, I'd like to see the day aspect and the respite aspect as being part of the campaign as well as the residential aspect, because it's all one and the same. Dolwen serves the community in so many different ways, and I love the place. And yes, so point number one is I'll be having another chat with my colleagues in the union, and we will be responding. And point number two is
Can you just get back up again? Because I've just got a question for you. So in your position, what advice would you give to local people here tonight in terms of what they can do to support this campaign?
I think it's responsible to the consultation. There's different options, isn't there? And I get a little bit frightened of saying too much in case I get into trouble or say the wrong thing. But I think people should respond to consultation. That's my opinion.
Yes, thank you. It's a point, just very quickly, I'll come over to you now, Wayne. It was made in a Wellon when we had one of the county councillors came along there, and he actually said, I mean, it's a bit like the person that complains they never won the lottery because they didn't buy a ticket. You know, if you don't engage with this consultation, let none of us be sort of crying over spilt milk if it goes, please. So I think I would absolutely endorse that point. Wayne?
got 2 points to make. I should have made the earlier one straight away. I suggest this committee invite Raymond Bartley to write to the press to make a public apology for making a statement. He's been using the press, so I advise him that this committee asked him to make a public apology. It's not fair that statements are made on behalf of the staff when they're already in a very vulnerable position as they are. Secondly, the amount of people in this room tonight shows the support. All we need to do now is everybody to go from here promising to get 10 people to come with him to write to the consultation. And the more bombard we do to the consultation, that's the way we're going to have effect to keep Dolwen open.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor Colin Hughes. And can I just say, Colin, before you start, big thanks to you, because I know that you could have been at Town Council tonight and you've chosen to support Dolwen. So public thanks.
Thank you, Alistair. I did go to Town Council for the beginning of the meeting because it was with the police about the latest state of bird and it's very good news and there have been some arrests. I did ask for Town Council to be postponed tonight actually because of this meeting here, but it was agreed not to. Tell you right. Is there anyone here? No, I tell you what, if you are going to write in the consultation, write to these people on this list as well. Can I ask you, Alistair, have you had this list from Denbigh?
Is this the task and finish group?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the email this afternoon.
Oh, they gave it in the end?
In the end,
right.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming, but I did get there.
All right.
Do you want to read it out, Colin? Do you want to read it out?
The name of the councillors, well, you've got Raymond Bartley, who's an independent, Richard Davis, who's an independent, you've got Mary Cloyd Davis, who's Plaid, Will Mullen James, who's Labour, and David Simmons, who's Labour. Now, this task and finish group has met and gone through all the options, etc. And then the local member comes out and says that it's that the staff are accepting that Dolwen going to private. And it's, yeah, I know it's rubbish. It is absolute horse muck, you know. As far as I'm concerned, really, you've got to bombard all your county councillors. But if Arwell's given me a guarantee that he's not going to vote for the closure, and if you can get all your Plaid councillors to do that, there are 8 Plaid councillors, there are 18 Labour councillors, I can guarantee you we'll have 26 then. Now, I'm not being political, I'm just doing a numbers game. If we can get 26, then basically we're all right, really.
Just quickly, I think we've got a response from the blue corner. Come on, Aaron.
Don't tell Gwen.
Dwi'n beth wna'n ddeitha chi, os ywch chi y holl bobl sydd yn cynghorwyr afur I yno, fysa'n iawn. O'r gweithio wrth beth o'n i fyny, dim ond 11 o'na chi oedd yno yn y cyfarfod oedd yn trafod storiadau. Does am digon o'ch chi'n troi I fyny I gyfarfodydd. Dyna un peth. Mi driau'n gorau cael y 7 arall I gytuno o fi, fi'n a'n gorau. Byddai'n neud mwy.
Maya. Okay, fine, so headphones on, folks, if you need them. Okay.
Dwi'n really sorry bod I ddim yma heno, Sarah Jane, o Rhythyn. Nath Sarah Jane, mae'n nain ni, nath Sarah Jane fynd trwy gwmpas misoedd yn ôl a nath ei godi 5,000 o signatures. Mae hi yn absolutely cynical, mae hi yn absolutely pissed off, achos mae hi o'r fan, sorry, mae hi o'r fan, nad oes na ddim yn mynd I, mae hi'n teimlo nad oes na ddim gwahaniaeth yn mynd I fod. Y broblem sydd gennym ni ydy dyna sut mae rhan fwy o bobl yn teimlo erbyn hyn. Da ni wedi cael cynghorwyr yn deud mewn cyfarfodydd cyhoeddus na bod yr council yn officer-led. So mae gennym fi syniciaeth masif am hwn I gyd, achos dwi'n meddwl bod nhw wedi gwneud y penderfyniad yn barod. Felly, dwi ddim yn dadle yn erbyn hwn, dwi ddim, achos dyna'r unig beth sydd gyda ni. Ond dwi'n meddwl bod rhaid I fod yn fwy safi. A dwi ddim yn gwybod sut Cyn I fi ddod yn ofalwr yn ôl I Denbigh I edrych ar ôl fy rhieni, nath dad baffio ar hyd I oes o bobl yn cofio'n had, David Jones, o'r rhan fwyaf bobl yn meddwl bod o off I ben. Nath o gloi hun yn ysbyty meddwl am 2 ddiwrnod yn erbyn preifateiddio gwasanaethau cyhoeddus. Ac o'r rhan fwyaf bobl yn meddwl bod o yn crazy. Wel, dyma reality. Nath fy mam fynd efo dementia, mae hi wedi bod yn ddibynnol ar y gwasanaethau. Mi gath I broblemau efo'r gwasanaethau preifat. Mi gath I broblemau efo'r ei gwasanaethau cyhoeddus. Felly mae rhaid ni fod yn onest. Ond dim dyna'r gwir am Dolwen, nac I. Mae pawb yn gwybod bod Dolwen yn wych. Ymhwestiwn I ydy, sut da ni'n mynd I harnesu y cynicism sy'n allan yna bod y cyngor wedi gwneud y penderfyniad yn barod? Sut ydyn ni'n mynd I gael bobl I gael ymlaen I fod yn involved, cael Sarah Jane yn ôl efo ni, achos mae hi'n teimlo yn hollol disenchanted. Dyna'r broblem dwi'n gweld sydd gyda ni.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Can I just raise a point that might be worth including in any correspondence to the councillors? It's my understanding from some of the research that I did prior to the last meeting, although it would be as well to check on it, that if the care of the elderly in Denbigh becomes privatised, one of the big dangers is that private companies have a habit of going bust. In which case the rug is completely pulled out underneath the residents. And so it's my understanding that if that were to happen, the council then have a duty of care to provide alternative accommodation. So what plans have they got in place for that sort of scenario?
It's a good point. I mean, I would imagine that would come under the auspices of an impact assessment, should there indeed be one. But yeah, it's a very good point, well made. And actually, just on that point, I know that if you took the 2 largest private providers in the UK at the time we're all sitting here this evening, their combined debts exceed £5.5 billion. And there are, in that sector of private care, there are 250,000 people working on 0-hour contracts, on rates of pay which are not just below the minimum level, but criminally illegal. And, you know, I'm not scaremongering people and saying, ergo, if that's what we do with Dolwen, that's what we'll get. But I think it's very mindful to be aware of what's on the other side of the fence. Please.
The lady that was speaking before, saying that she tried to get her husband referred, tried to get your husband referred to Dolwen, but the social worker won't do it. That is part of a national plan, that wherever they've been trying to run a care home down, the social workers have been told not to refer patients so that they can say, look, it's not at full capacity, so it's not running properly.
I look after him by myself.
Yeah.
And I need a respite at Dolwen. It's got to go 7 miles away.
It seems to be a standard practice that if you want to privatise something, you make it so it's impossible for it to work properly, and then say, look, it's no good, we need to privatise.
It's sad.
They say about dementia, keep the same people, and that person with dementia will respond. Yes. But they don't, because they pushed about from here and there, different people in the homes. Dolwen, they know it there, because they're the permanent staff there. And he was there a few times and he settled in, not for the day, but with the manager.
I think it's like it's been said from the stage, the people who are organising this are looking at spreadsheets.
Well, what happens to them if something so dreadful happens to these people? Where will they go? Private? Where they going to get the money from?
Yes, please.
I'd just like to say, similar to this lady's experience, our mother is in Dolwen, and she was diagnosed with dementia earlier this year. And initially we did ask about her going into Dolwen for daycare, and were told that no, there was a possibility it was closing, it was unlikely she could get in. Fortunately, we did manage to get her into Dolwen. Started off 1 day a week, increased to 2 days, and then went to 3 days a week, and she loved it there. She loved it in the day centre, and she's very happy there. Sadly, about 5 weeks ago, my father, who was her carer, was taken ill. He ended up being admitted to hospital, and she then was taken into respite in Denbigh. Just over 2 weeks ago, he sadly passed away. But we as a family are so grateful that she's in Dolwen, where she's well cared for by the wonderful staff, and she's happy and she's safe. We wouldn't be able to look after her because she does need 24-hour care.
She's very happy.
And she's very happy in Dolwen, and it's a huge relief. Well, it was a huge relief to us when my dad went into hospital that she was there, because that was one less thing that we had to worry about. And we couldn't thank the staff at Dolwen enough. And they've been a life, God sent to us. And there'll be other families in similar situations who, what will happen to them if Dolwen's closed? Where will they go, where the carer is taken in? So, we say support Dolwen, and we want to do whatever we can to support
Thank you very
much.
Talking about care at home. What usually happens to care at home? They give you half an hour in the morning and half an hour at night. What happens to the poor person over there, sitting there by themselves, can't even hold up, feed themselves, even go to the toilet sometimes.
Can I just, you're right. I have to come back to you on that. It's a great point, and all too often they don't even get that half hour because the poor person in that job is on a 0 hours contract. They're not even getting paid for their petrol in some cases, and they're whizzing off to the next one just to try and get. It's not ideal, you raise a very good point. Thank you.
But the council have stopped all the home carers anyway, haven't they? So all gone out to private contracts.
And why have they gone out to private contracts?
So they can make both. Don't just charge.
Just on a personal
Yes.
just to back up this lady here, I did a
Right.
3 hours with my mother in Dolwen, and just said I got a chance to say thank you very much to the staff at the youth board. We had a meeting with a social worker who came from Pigot, I think, over this closure, and me and my brother had a meeting with him with my mum, took my mum with us. But we didn't think my mum was going to catch on to what he was saying because she's got Alzheimer's and stuff like that. But they do know what's going on, because at one point in that meeting, my mum grabbed my brother's hand and said to my brother, they're not going to take it from here now, are they? That's it. They do know what's going on. You might not think they do, but they do know what's going on.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes?
Yeah, I was going to say about care at home and individual care and stuff. There's a new act coming out that's going to be sort of enforced within Wales from April of next year, where social services will not be looking at what that person's needs are, but they'll look at what the families can provide, and then extra. So, if they're pushing for Dolwen to be closed, and we'll support and we'll provide care at home and all that individualised care, it won't be what they're actually saying because of the new act that's going to be coming out.
Thanks, Beth. That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah. Colin?
If I can come back and leave that.
Yes, of course.
I think the staff in Dolwen will know me. My mum was there, and she died just under 4 years ago. And I became a county councillor in 2008, first of all. And I found it incredibly frustrating that you had these officers who were hell-bent on getting rid of the care homes, Dolwen, etc. Yet, if you ask, and I've got a friend who is very high up in the private sector in care, and he admits that that percentage that Mabel talked about is very, very significant. That it won't change. That that care need will always be there, and potentially it will grow. I think other types of need will grow as well, but you know, we've got to have that. There will always be that percentage of need, and I found it incredibly frustrating, angering as well actually, when you've got somebody who's in their, I don't know, 40s, 50s, telling me how elderly care should look. Whereas, you know, I mean, they're not the elderly making the decision, are they? You know, it's always an expert. Well, it's totally wrong. You know, I mean, my mum used to live in Pigot, which is just down below Dolwen, and I would say, you know, I mean, I used to go and see my mum regularly, but the fact was, you know, you couldn't be there all the time. Her carers would come in. She actually went into, she got into Dolwen because she went there for a couple of weeks respite because she was having a lot of falls. And then I remember going there one day and she says, I want to stay here, I don't want to go home. And it was fine then, that was 2010. There wasn't this big intention. Yeah, she was in the day centre before that, yeah, because she was familiar, you know, she knew a lot of the staff and she was happy there. I mean, I will say, you know, she did moan about the odd meal. That was my mother, you know, but never a great cook either, so there we go, you know. No, in all seriousness now, the fact is, you know, that need remains, and these experts, as I say, who spoon feed lots of councillors, certainly a few on that list, they spoon feed them. You get a lot of councillors who don't ask enough questions, who won't object to anything. I'm sure all my fellow councillors here will agree with me there. And they basically, you know, they just swallow it all, hook, line and sinker, and they sleep happily at night, you know. It's fundamental that you basically, somehow, we change the attitudes of these people, you know. We've got 3 independents in Ripon, for instance, you know, and obviously you've got a well under threat, you know. There's one Plaid councillor in Colwyn, but obviously Cusco Guy covers the whole of Dyffryn and Dyrnion. So it's important that you get into all of these people to make them change their minds, really. You know, basically, I think really the leadership of social services need slamming on this one. You know, they need to realise that they serve the people, not, you know, themselves. They're not self-serving. And I mean, for God's sake, you know, my mum had the happiest 2 years of her later life in Dolwen. You know, I would say she was probably depressed before she got there, actually. And I'm very grateful to the staff. You know, there was a few of the staff at her funeral as well, and it's absolutely vital. You know, I mean, we cannot let this go. If they do, then God help us. You know. Thank you.
Following on from that very important point, and Myers' point earlier about cynicism, just add this one little anecdote. I had a meeting with the officer in charge of this process. I won't name him, it won't be fair. Back in February or March this year, and I asked him what was Denbigh's vision for elderly care, moving on to the future. What he told me was Denbigh's, so you guys, Denbigh's vision was that Denbigh would become commissioners, not providers. Okay? So the question that I think you guys need to ask is who actually runs this joint? You know, who makes the decisions in whose name? And if you can turn that around and question whether or not that is actually Denbigh's vision, and whether you can propose a different vision which consists of providing our community-run, publicly run care homes, then that would be a great achievement. But that's your challenge, and as people who live in Wales, we always, being a small country and small communities, we're always the underdogs. We always like to support the underdog. So the challenge to tackle the cynicism is to get everybody here tonight, as was said earlier, to write and make their voices heard. Get all the families across Wales and the UK to write in. And don't be afraid of writing. Don't be afraid of putting down your views, because you're not wrong. And that's an important point. You can't be incorrect because it's your opinion. And make sure that your views are written in and heard by the council. Don't use large words, don't bother with them. Just say that you want to see Dolwen kept open for the public in Denbigh. And if they hear loud and clear that Denbighshire wants to keep its publicly run care homes open, then they will have no choice but to listen to our views. That's how we tackle cynicism, by winning the argument.
Just quickly further to that, Colin, I think you came in slightly afterwards because, as you said, you've been to the town council meeting, so you might have missed what I said earlier on. I did ask at Denbigh Library whether or not we could have some copies, hard copies now, for people that aren't on the internet and so on, where they can fill in the boxes in their own words. Yeah, they had one copy that they eventually admitted to and said, well, you could have it for your meeting for people to share tonight. Yeah, no, seriously, and I had it back from a lead officer today that no, we don't supply them for that sort of meeting. So can I ask a big favour of you? Can you please have a word, Colin? And can you make sure that for these people here tonight who may just want to pop into the library and get one, be it in Welsh, be it in English, can we make sure that they're there? Because that's not too much to ask. This is a consultation. Let's make it one. Thanks, Colin. Cheers. Wayne, quickly.
I was just looking at this as well, the task and finish group. Every task and finish group I've seen previously doesn't involve just people from the actual council itself. Usually if you have a task and finish group, you invite other people into the group as well. And I think that comment needs to be made to Denbighshire tomorrow, really, that before this task and finish group go ahead with their work, that they need other people, which would make it much more
so you're saying it needs lay members as well to give it some balance?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
stakeholders as well, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Was there somebody over here? Yes, yes please.
Caroline Wynne, I'm thinking, where are we going to go from here? If we win the battle but not the war, they might say, yes, we can have Dolwen open, but we're going to take money from somewhere else, which is a bit spiteful and could be equally as vital. So, and I agree with mine. I am cynical about. I mean, if I'm going to write, do they just throw it in the bin? Or will they? Can you really guarantee me that they will read it? And is it just a financial reason for closing Dolwen?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And actually, if you read the supporting document, and again, I stress to people, and I will not stop stressing it, we've got loads of copies here, so please don't go tonight without copies of both the bit where you fill in the boxes and the supporting evidence which underpins the questions that they're asking. It's really important. But to go back to your question, I would say absolutely. In just about every paragraph that I've read, that this supports our current strategy of saving money in so many words. Actually, this shouldn't be about money.
Because they tell us to look after ourselves, we mustn't take too much salt, and we must walk, and we must do that, this, that, and the other. What's the point of us looking after ourselves to be a little older, when maybe when we need care, well, we haven't got anywhere to go?
Very good point, thank you. Yes, Bernadette.
I'm a trade unionist with a big mouth.
No, it's okay.
It's great the consultation, it's great petitions, it's great writing, but I stood out in the snow in Ruthin, in Denbigh HQ back in February. There is nothing like a demonstration, there is nothing like a protest. Standing out, you know, these councillors, make them feel really, really uncomfortable. That's our job. Because basically we want them not to vote, you know, with the Tories and all the rest of it, to get this, you know, to make sure that this doesn't become privatised. So alongside the consultation, we've got to get out, whether it's a county hall or whether it's standing outside Dolwen itself. And we're getting, you know, we get the TV involved, we get the media down here, and that is the way to do it. You need a visual, big protest and a big demonstration. And, you know, I'll come with a loudspeaker and I'll cover my voice and make sure that we get heard, okay?
Thanks, Jennifer. Dave.
We were talking about earlier, yes, no, or an abstain.
Sorry, who's speaking? Sorry. Oh, I beg your pardon.
I just wondered this vote after the consultation, will the vote be yes, no, or abstain?
That's right.
So I just wonder how many will abstain.
Yeah, it's a good point, and the reason it's a good point, of course, is because it will always come down to numbers, you know. We know that, and I'll give you an example of this actually. When they had the vote for the main voting through the budget of the council, which is the big one really, earlier this year, that vote, and I'm sure I'll be contradicted if I get this wrong, was carried by 22 votes to 16. So 22 and 16 makes 38. 47 less 38 makes 9. Okay, the chair and the vice chair abstained, which is, you know, normal. There wouldn't be anything particularly unusual in that. But actually, for so many county councillors to not attend a meeting of such enormous importance for everybody in the county is a scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Really. Dave.
Thanks for reading out my mum's note.
I'll just say I've known Dave's mum since I was about that big. I used to deliver her papers.
It's really useful after that. Going for quite a few points there. The one you raised about the hard copy, my sister picked up the same thing from South Wales this morning. She went online yesterday, could only find that, and has sent off 3 emails regarding that. As for the quality of Dolwen, no complaint at all. We've Colin on everything there, and all the staff that are here. So we know my mum. She went in for respite, so I could go on holiday. Otherwise, I'd never get away. Full-time carer. My dad was there for 3 years. Received superb care and attention. If that goes, where are we going to go? Any of the care home. The one in Corwin, my mum had an auntie there. Dolwen arranged a trip out to go to that care centre so they could see her before she passed away. So, excuse me, a terrible, terrible loss to the community. Any of the care homes that were closed.
Thanks very much indeed, David. Yes, please. Adwell.
You must be thinking, why is Gwyneth Kensler not speaking? She hasn't got a voice, so she's asked me to come instead of her. She was down in Aberystwyth lately, and she read the Cambrian News. This is what is in the Cambrian News. Are the councillors who are pushing through unpopular privatisation of Odlonda, this is in the care home, like viewers here, simply not aware of the financial storm about to break over the whole private care sector in the UK? The effects of this will be to wipe out large parts of the private sector capacity to operate council contracts. And this is happening now in Tremont. One has been closed in Tremont. So where are we going? That gentleman's right. When I get old, I'm nearly 62. I've got 2 weeks to go. So what's going to happen? Where are people like Colin and I going to go? I hope I don't have to be the same place as him. I know, I played rugby against him and I beat him quite unhandsomely. It
was a filthy rugby player.
So this is a great dilemma. We've been forced by cuts. Cuts, that's what they are, cuts. We've been forced into these suggestions. Today, they asked us, as councillors, to think of other budget cuts. We didn't say a word, did we? We didn't say a word. The independent group, and you have some representing you here, in Denbigh, they put some forward. We, within our party, or the Labour Party, didn't put any in. So this is the situation we're in.
Thanks,
We have been forced.
When Denbighshire Voice Pasture Denbigh started, there were 3 fundamental principles upon which it did start. And actually Arwell has just touched on one of the most important, which was, okay, you've told us that you want to do X, Y and Z, and you want to close these care homes, and you want to stop funding young carers, and so on and so on. But what were the other alternatives? I was still waiting, and that was last November. And I think it's entirely reasonable as stakeholders in the county that pay council tax and general taxation to be able to ask the powers that be what was on all of the menu. We don't want the table d'hote. We want the full menu. We want to see everything that's out there, and we still don't know. And it's scandalous. And I have the utmost respect for the stance that you've taken, and the Labour group very well documented, you know. But seriously, it's okay, but what on earth were the alternatives? Because, no offence, if the government says you've got to save 17 million quid over 2 years, which, all right, equated to shade under 10% of the total budget, or there or thereabouts, what sort of person would think, right, well, we'll start with the elderly and the children and the young carers and the people that are having mental health issues, and well, they're from a different planet from me, that's all I can say. I don't know what was going on there, but there we are. Right, anybody else? You haven't come here to listen to me.
As a stakeholder, we have responsibility to provide good quality services to our people in Denbigh. You know, we've been doing it all these years in Dolwen. If we go private with Dolwen, we're not going to get the standards as high as we've got now. It'll go down the pan. And we've got to make sure that our people of Denbigh get what they deserve.
Thank you very much. Absolutely right.
Can I just say yes? Yeah.
John?
Yeah. My mum was looked after in Dolwen, and fantastic care. No, I'm all right. Yeah. And you know, I'd just like to commend the staff really. You know, from management right through. I just think it's a no-brainer in a way that I don't think it's going to close because just the feeling in this room for a start. I just think that if everybody pulls together, the independents and everybody, you know, pull together, because at the end of the day, it's your mum and it's your dad, and then it's you. And me, and you know, it's bloody ridiculous. Absolutely. The first time I heard about it was a few years back when, you know, it's been in the press, hasn't it? You know, calling this, and then and they spent a lot of money in a well, and they spent a lot of money in Dolwen here. You only have to see how nice it is in Scotland. Go for a walk. It's beautiful, isn't it? But I don't. You know, I'm optimistic and not a pessimist, you know, and I do think that if we kick ass, it will happen.
Absolutely. I totally agree, John. Thank you. Have we got a lady in here who wanted to speak?
Sorry.
Yes, please.
I'm a member staff in Dolwen, and the gentleman asked whether they need to go when it's their turn. Well, according to the last big meeting we had, when Mr. Phil Gilroy was, the neighbours will look after
Yeah. And this you know, I'm not going to apologise, and I know this is being taped, and I don't mind because people need to know this is the same chap that was instrumental behind the closure of Aberwilliam Ministries as well. More vulnerable people. Anybody else? Right, does everybody know what the process is from here? Just while there's a little bit of a lull, while people are sort of deciding whether or not they want to say something, is anybody unclear about what the process is? Would people like me to go through it very quickly? Yeah? Okay. This consultation ends on January the 17th. Right. You can do it online, and if you go Denbighshire County Council current consultations, it will feed you in, and it's the top one that's online. And Colin, is it under elderly care or what's it?
Future of in-house care?
Yeah, future of in-house care it's under. But anyway, you'll feed into that, and it will give you can either do it on this thing called SurveyMonkey, which can take you about 10 minutes. The only sort of snag I have with SurveyMonkey is that you feel a bit rushed to get through it. Oh, Jason?
Just watching the quickest link is news, latest consultations.
Right.
Can I make one point that people definitely need to be aware of?
Please.
Get onto their councils. You reminded me, you said the consultation finishes on the 17th of January.
Yes.
The meeting for Denbigh is on the 14th of January.
Yeah, I know, and I raised it just before you came in.
Sorry.
No, you didn't know. It's scandalous to have that 3 days before the end of the consultation with 2 1.5-hour windows. That's insulting. I absolutely agree, Jason. Yeah. So the procedure is that there's hard copies, and by that I mean actual pieces of paper, where you can actually fill it out in pen, where you can go away to your own home, put the kettle on, get a cup of tea, and have a good think about it. And you can read through the supporting document, which goes through their arguments for what they're doing, and you can answer the boxes on this. What is important is that you complete it, you take as long as you like, seek help if you need it, there's plenty of it, and make sure it's handed in. As I say, there's this lady, Naist Vaughan Evans in Dolwen. Alternatively, there's an address there which Mile and Lowry have both got, which tells you where it goes to down in Brill. That would be on the internet, it would be on the website as well. It's all there. But please, please, let nobody be complacent and think it's okay, we've got 10 weeks. Better to get it done sooner and make sure that they're in. And tell your friends, and tell your neighbours, and tell your family. I'm going to come to you. This gentleman just put his hand up, and I'll come straight over back to okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask this question because I'm confused between public and private. I didn't inquire about, I live in Denbigh, obviously traffic. I inquired about private care homes. And I found out that they are all profit motivated companies. But there's one which is, I said, hold on, glue it out, try to mention that name, but I don't mean that literally. They are care home non-profit. So to me, regardless private or public, as long as the service is there, that's the big one. I'm like 70 plus now, so sooner or later I might be, need that particular service at the end of the day. But if this, in the service of this 300 non-profit, if the government doesn't have any more money to support our public care homes, is there a choice to have this particular company? I mean, I was surprised. I said, unit government, this is housing association, they do care home. And they're monitoring. I mean, the service, I'm not saying perfect, but more or less, if I look at it, I'm quite pleased. I'm involved with nurses and carers in Denbigh, but happen to be chair of the Northwest Philippine Association. When I asked the carers that was hired here, that my problem was not EU in EU countries. That is, I'm coming to politics now because of the non-EU nurses or carers. When the legislation was changed to open up for non-EU, I mean EU countries, what happened to the non-EU carers? Some of them been deported or subject to deportation because the private home that they were working with, why should I get non-EU country when I can get EU country free? Because today, I'm not EU country, you have to have a license. So I think that the moment in time that 2 families are subject to deportation in our area, I would not mention which care home is this, but some people might know. But my concern is, regardless private or public, as long as the service is quite there, I'm not bothered. But at the moment in time, I hope Darwin should be,
Thank you very much. One more Betsam, and then I think we're going to sort of wrap this up unless there's any more pressing ones. Betsam.
I was just wondering if it would help if we actually did a letter drop with the consultation paper and the forms. I'm more than happy to go around the street, just putting them through letterboxes.
I think it's a superb idea.
And the email addresses, and perhaps with a note saying I'll be back in a couple of days to pick it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because, you know, there was a great effort to get a lot of the leaflets out this last 2 weeks. We had 3,000 of them, and it took a lot of volunteers to go out and get those out there. It's the same principle, only this time you're going to be knocking again to say, if you filled it out, leave it with us, we'll make sure it gets in. And I think if there are any people here tonight who would be interested in volunteering to do that within the locality, please just stay back, give some brief details, name, like a mobile number, whatever, and we can actually organise people and we can organise set dates. We have to use this time now, between now and January the 17th. It's really important. Okay. I think we're going to sort of wind up now. So, any last words?
Well, I think everything's been said, and thank you everyone for all of your comments tonight. I think the main thing is how we go ahead now, and I think John pointed it out there, we need to kick ass, we have to try everything, we need to go about it in every avenue, we need to get the press involved, we need to use social media, we need to go out and protest outside Ruthin County Hall, we need to email all councillors, AMs, MPs, regional lists, all candidates, get crowdfunding. I think that's a key thing, so we can get some money and resources to help the campaign. And if you're willing to volunteer, you know, you've done a fantastic job, a small group of very dedicated people organising tonight. And I think if we get more volunteers to help and get the consultation questionnaires out and get letters, you know, draft letters and everything, and help people to fill in the forms, that will definitely help. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's obvious from the opinion here tonight that, you know, the views of Denbigh Town itself and the communities that Dolwen needs to be retained. It's putting the case forward, that's the next step. Now, personally, on a completely personal level, I'm a bit radical on these things. You know, I'd go back to the... Bernadette is absolutely right, you know. You need to get people out, you know, lobbying the councillors outside the council hall with placards and what have you. But I personally go further, and I go back to Militant in Liverpool back in the 80s, where I think Denbighshire should say, this is the cost of delivering the services that we need, and that's what we're going to do, deliver the services and pass the bill on to the government in Cardiff. And if that means the government in Cardiff sends in the commissioners to do the work, then it's on their heads, you know. Our local authority will say, well, look, we think that the people of Denbighshire deserve these services. And it's up to you down in Cardiff to do the cuts if you insist on doing that. That might be something some of the councillors might want to think about. But, you know, if they're militant or not is a different matter. But it's the case, there are options there. The council will tell you, right, okay, where are you going to save £700,000? Start at the top and work your way down. That's the thing we're thinking about.
Very briefly, Jan.